The evacuation shuttles were already lifting off when Staff Sergeant Daniel Reyes found them. He hadn't been looking for survivors. The Vethry refugee station on Kappa Minories 4 was supposed to be empty. The coalition had declared the sector lost. The Dravaki advanced too fast and too vicious to hold back. Every sentient being with clearance papers and a functioning translator had been loaded onto the evacuation fleet. Every checkpoint had been cleared. Every manifest had been signed. Daniel had only gone back because he dropped his field recorder near the secondary filtration bay. A stupid reason. A small reason. But small reasons had a way of matching out here. He heard them before he saw them. Two small voices, speaking in the chittering, melodic tones of the Vethry lower caste dialect. His translator earpiece struggled with it. The lower caste had inflections the standard matrices hadn't been fully programmed for. Not enough speakers. Not enough priority. He found them huddled behind a collapsed ventilation panel in sub-level 3. Two young Vethry females, barely adolescent by the look of their underdeveloped frond crests. They had wide, silver-pale eyes and skin the color of sea glass, and they were holding each other with 4 of their 6 limbs while the other 2 clutched a battered carry sack between them. They froze when they saw him. Every muscle in their slight frames locked rigid, the biological threat response of prey animals staring down a predator. Daniel had seen that response before, in humans too, in field hospitals on worlds where the war had ground everything down to survival instinct. He stopped moving. He lowered himself slowly to one knee, making himself smaller, his hands open and visible. "Hey," he said softly. "It's okay." The translator earpiece rendered it in clumsy approximation. The elder of the two, he guessed elder only because she put herself in front of the younger one, made a sound like grinding crystal. The translator caught fragments. Asterisk human. Coalition, abandoned. Asterisk. Abandoned. Daniel felt something cold move through his chest. "What are your names?" he asked. More grinding crystal sounds. This time the translator gave him more. Asterisk Sitha. And Miravel. "We were in the lower processing hold. We fell asleep. We woke up and everyone was gone." Asterisk. He looked at them. 2 children, alone on a station that was now deep inside enemy territory, on a world that would be Dravaki occupied within 6 hours. No papers, almost certainly. Lower caste Vethry rarely had full coalition documentation. They would have been loaded last, processed last, prioritized last. And they hadn't been processed at all. He checked his communicator. The evacuation fleet was already 40,000 kilometers out. Standard coalition protocol for Kappa Minories 4 was total calm silence until the fleet cleared the contested zone. Another 3 hours minimum. He had one emergency beacon, the kind that would bring a response in 6 to 8 hours if someone was listening. 6 to 8 hours. And the Dravaki would be here in 6. Daniel stood up. "All right," he said. "Can you walk?" The translator mangled it. He tried again, simpler. Asterisk walk. "Move. Can you?" Asterisk. Sitha, the elder one, looked at him with those pale silver eyes. She was trying to read him, he realized. Trying to calculate if he was something to fear. She had probably spent her whole life doing exactly that. Calculating threats, reading the body language of beings larger and louder and better documented than herself. He met her gaze and didn't flinch from it. She made a decision. She took her sister's limb and she stood up. Daniel knew the station better than he had any right to. He'd been part of the advanced engineering team that had installed the second-tier atmospheric regulators 8 months ago, back when Kappa Minories 4 was still a viable refugee hub. He knew where the maintenance tunnels ran. He knew which sections of the outer hull had emergency microlock airlocks, the kind used for equipment transfers that didn't get logged in the main manifest. He knew, most importantly, that there was a single pilot emergency survey skiff in Dock 7C that the evacuation team had deemed too small and too fuel-compromised to bother with. He'd been thinking about that skiff since the moment he stood up. The 3 of them moved through the maintenance corridors quickly. Daniel set the pace. Faster than he'd usually walk, slower than a run. Calibrated for 2 sets of alien legs that were built for different gravity than this. He checked on them every 30 seconds. Sitha kept pace without complaint. Miravel, the younger one, stumbled twice. Each time, Daniel caught her without thinking about it. The second time, she looked up at him with an expression that the translator couldn't render, but that he understood anyway. "You didn't let me fall." "Not today," he told her. In Corridor Junction 9, they ran into trouble. A Dravaki advanced scout drone, small, fast, the kind that preceded the main occupation force to map infrastructure, came skittering around the bend with its sensor array spinning. Daniel pulled both girls back into an alcove before it rounded the corner, pressing them flat against the wall, his body between them and the corridor. He held his breath. The drone passed within 4 meters. It did not stop. Daniel exhaled very slowly. Sitha looked up at him and made a sound. The translator took a moment. Asterisk, you shielded us. You are not coalition military. You had no orders to shield us. Asterisk. No, he agreed. Then why? He thought about it. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because he wanted to give her the real one, not the automatic one. Because there's no good reason not to, he said finally. And about 1,000 good reasons to try. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she made another sound, quieter, that the translator didn't catch at all. Some things didn't need translation. Dock 7C was where he remembered it. The skiff was where he remembered it. The fuel cell was, as expected, down to 17%. Not enough for a full transit jump, but more than enough to reach the outer edge of the contested zone if he pushed the drive. He spent 12 minutes on the pre-flight, which was 11 minutes faster than regulations allowed. He ran the critical checks and skipped the advisory ones. He helped Sitha and Miravel strap into the cargo restraint webbing in the back. The skiff had no passenger seats, and he talked to them while he worked, not because they could fully understand him, but because he'd found, over years of field work, that the human voice had a specific quality that worked on frightened beings regardless of species. Calm, steady, present. What is that panel? Sitha asked, watching his hands on the controls. Navigation, he said. And that one? Drive manifold regulation. She watched him work with those pale silver eyes, absorbing everything. He noted it. She was cataloging, learning, filling herself with information as a survival mechanism. Smart kid. The skiff cleared the station dock with 40 minutes to spare. They made coalition space in 4 hours and 19 minutes, running on 11% fuel cell by the time the emergency beacon brought the frigate enduring margin to intercept them. The processing took another 2 hours. Daniel sat with Sitha and Miravel in the medical bay while a coalition documentation officer tried to work through the lower caste registration issue, which was as complicated and bureaucratic as Daniel had expected it to be. He didn't leave. He sat, and when the documentation officer started using the tone that meant this is going to take a long time, and these are complications, Daniel used the tone he perfected over 15 years of dealing with coalition bureaucracy. The tone that meant, I am a patient man and I am going nowhere. The documentation was completed by hour 2. Full coalition refugee status, both of them. Legal names on record. Resettlement eligibility. The kind of paperwork that meant they existed, officially, in a galaxy that had a habit of misplacing people who fell through the cracks. When the officer left, Miravel crawled across the medical bay bench and pressed herself against Daniel's side. She was small, warm, and she smelled faintly of copper and something like rain. He didn't move. He sat with her while her breathing slowed and evened out into sleep. Sitha watched from across the bench. Why did you go back? She asked. Asterisk for the recording device. Why did that matter enough? Asterisk. Daniel considered the question. It recorded conversations, he said. Field notes. Things I didn't want to lose. Asterisk, you almost lost us instead. If you had not gone back. Asterisk. I know. We would have died. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Then, asterisk, humans do not calculate the way other species calculate. We were told this. I did not believe it until now. Asterisk. Daniel looked down at the sleeping form of Miravel, and then back at Sitha, and he almost said something straightforward and modest. Instead, he said what he actually thought. The math seemed pretty simple to me, he said. There were 2 of you. There was 1 of me. I had a skiff and enough fuel. What was there to calculate? Sitha made a sound that her species used for something the translator rendered, after a moment's processing, as this is the answer I will remember for the rest of my life. Daniel Reyes leaned back against the wall of the medical bay, and outside the viewport, the stars moved on.